Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sundazed and Confused. And we appreciate you coming by. Hopefully today we have a special guest, Dr. MJ Coco, and we'll get some titillating conversation for everybody. So without further ado, we'll run around the house here and do some introductions, and we'll save the guest for last. So like always, we'll start with females first. My beautiful wife.
Thank you, Smart Poker. Hi, I'm Crispy WANNABE. You can find me here every Sunday and Wednesday and on YouTube over Coco for Cannabis. And excited about this show. This is awesome having Doc here. And I'm glad to be here. Thanks, chatters, for coming in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Take it away, Weed Nerd.
Yeah, cheers, gang. Cheers to Smart and Crispy and Puffy. And of course, good old Dr. MJ Coco. It's going to be a good show today there, and welcome to chat. So can't wait to get going. Go ahead, Puffy.
Hey, good morning, afternoon, everybody in chat, everybody on the panel. Thanks for stopping by, Dr. MJ Coco. We really appreciate it. I know that with your mind full of knowledge that, somebody's going to learn something today. So hopefully we all can take something away from today and apply it to our own practices and, maybe just get a little bit smarter today. So appreciate everybody showing up, and, it's going to be a good show.
Here's to that. And our guest, Dr. MJ, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you, do your introduction?
Absolutely, guys. That was really a warm welcome there, and I'll try to live up to that billing. I am Dr. MJ Coco, as you guys know, from cocoforcannabis.com. You can find me there. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Dr. MJ Coco, on Instagram at Dr. MJ Coco, and through shows like this. So thanks to all the hosts for having me on tonight or today. I'm excited for the conversation.
Thank you, Doc.
The chat wasn't updating for some reason. There was people here.
Yeah, cheers to the chat, man. We always take a second, say hi to Jack, Greenstock, Budweiser, Anova, Baby Beast, Fast Food, Seed Person One. I got to hurry up and read this real quick. No way was I going to miss an episode with Doc. He was the guest on the very first Cannabis podcast episode I ever listened to. So cheers to Seed Person, man. That's awesome. Rowdy's there. I'm sure he'll be giving you a hard time. Rowdy's going to be giving you a hard time about your journals, Doc.
Okay, well, I don't have any plants right now, so I feel like I'm safe on my current.
We love Rowdy, and we have to give him a hard time from up here. But anyhow, we'll get right into this, Doc. I guess first we'll start with plant training. We had the plant training grow challenge coming up over at Coco for Cannabis.
Yep. And, I think some people are starting for the plant training grow challenge about now. So it's flip day, as you guys know, October 1st. So people get to start, whenever they feel like they need to in order to get into position for October 1st. I was planning to have a grow room ready for the PTGC, but that's going to have to wait probably for the NYGC. So I'm scrambling to try to figure out where I'm going to grow my PTGC plants. We'll see.
Oh, you're going back to the tent for one for
I'm gonna put the tent up somewhere. Yeah, but I had the tent set up in sort of what was to become a guest room, and in the last couple of months it has sort of become a guest room, and now we're gonna have some guests coming. So I can't just put my tent back in there.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a great host of your guest.
Hey, you just moved on. You should have got a place with a grow room.
Yeah, exactly. So I got to figure out, well, now where's the tent go? Because I've been really sort of happy that it wasn't in my office, but I think it's going to have to come back into my office. In any event, I'm growing in the PTGC. I'm probably not going to start my plants until about September 1st, but
I had that written down here about your grow room, Bill, and I know you've been busy with a lot of stuff that you got your hands into, so it's always
it's just a lot, and I can't get away with prioritizing that project in terms of household projects right now. So there are other sort of household projects that we need to prioritize before we build my grow room. So, which makes sense. And I have a tent. I just have to figure out where to put it.
Right.
I want to be able to, do the grow room up right. So I think if I put it off a few months, I'll have that opportunity.
That's one thing I've learned is set, because we're actually in the process of setting ours back up. We should be ready to go here in a couple of days, but I've realized like as I bring things on like auto fertigation, I realize, you know, my room would actually be a lot better now that I'm adding this if it were set up differently. So I've set my room up 3 different times. I'm hoping this is the last one. I've taken into account auto fert, these shows I can videotape in front of. So I know what you mean is what I'm getting at. It takes a minute. You really want to think it through and think about where you're going to be in 6 months or a year if you plan on upgrading, downgrading. So yeah, man, I'm glad you're taking your time. You'll get it how you want, but we're looking forward to seeing the tent grow. How do you plan on training your plants and plant training go challenge? Let's go over to groups. Can we do that? We just kind of revised.
Yeah, we got a little bit creative with our group names this year. So yeah, I'm happy with the groups. I'm going to be part of the architects.
Okay. So just for everybody's clear, we have the architects, we have the toppers, right?
Yeah.
How it goes? The benders,
The toppers, the benders,
strippers.
the strippers.
Yeah, everybody loves strippers. And then we have the misfits or all naturals or however, whatever you want to do in that, right? I don't have my notes.
Exactly. If you don't identify as an architect, a topper, bender, or a stripper, you can identify as a misfit. That's just perfectly awesome.
Right. The misfits is always a group that gets a lot of people self-identify as a misfit. And I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with cannabis growing and the past history of it and everything. So the misfit group's always very interesting. But yeah, I'll be in the architects group with you as well. And for the people like you, I don't know if you said it, if they don't know, that'll be for manifolds and main lines. And it's kind of just a catchier title than manifold / mainline. So I like the architects group, and it makes me think
because we're like constructing plans. You know, we have like plans. We're sort of like following blueprints, and we're building a structure at the base, and then let the plants go. Right. So
yeah. And we often reference it as that. I'll tell people a lot of times, look how much they've stretched. I don't need all that plant architecture to hold this much bud, you know? And so my training leaves a lot to be desired. And, but yeah, that's a perfect name for that group. And,
yep. And the toppers are just anybody else that, you know, cuts the tops off their plants periodically in any kind of fashion. And I guess the benders are for people that try not to, you know, cut the top off their plant in any kind of fashion.
Right. And like we have our good friend and fellow steering committee, Hemp with Gigi does an odd sort of they call it the GG mainline. So that's when someone's like that, they would fall into the toppers group because it's not quite a main, you know. And so it's nice that pretty much anything you do, you're going to find a group as long as you're growing cannabis, there's a place for you, even if it's the misfits, which that's the best. Sometimes you see some cool shit there. And then there's going to be a side challenge, right?
There is going to be a side challenge, but let's talk about that for just a second. Like Gigi and a lot of growers, they go and they sort of train the plant as they go, and they're willing to top, and they're going to kind of like train that plant as an individual plant, right? And that would be a topper. An architect is somebody that, you know, gets blueprints in advance and follows a plan from sort of advance. And like Gigi and I might end up growing very similar plants, but like we sort of came at it from different directions, right? So
that's a great point.
Yeah, that's how I see the difference between like the architects and the toppers. Like if you know what you're going to do before, you know, the seed gets wet and you're like, yeah, I'm going to grow it to 6 nodes and top to the 3rd and then keep whatever and then grow whatever. And then, you know, you got that whole thing worked out. I think you're an architect.
Nice. That's a great explanation. And I guess I kind of skipped right over that.
Yeah. But, you know, and conversely, if you're just sort of like, I'm going to see how it goes and respond and sort of train that plant into the space that's available for it, which is a totally legitimate way to train too. But that's a different sort of, that would be a topper or a bender, depending on which one of those ways that you prefer to go.
You know, this is a little bit off the subject, but it's just struck me. The other day I was watching PBS and there was a guy on there. I believe they were growing, can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was coffee beans. And this guy was growing it. Yeah, it was coffee beans. And he was a doctor and he bought some land. He was growing coffee beans and he tried this new method of putting up pretty much trellis is what they call it, trellising. And then he laid these coffee beans down, and he had some that were 8 years old. And he went under the plant and showed this coffee plant was massive. And he showed the 2 splits where he had laid it down, and it looked like pretty much like a manifold or something. And I'm thinking, we do that, but this guy was doing it with coffee. And I was thinking, I guess what I was thinking there is it seemed kind of shocking to me that this might have been a 10-year-old show on PBS. So it's not all that new that someone's just trying that with coffee. It just seemed odd to me.
Oh, no. I mean, I think they've grown coffee in a lot of creative ways for a long time. That may have just been sort of in that documentary. I don't think it was necessarily a novel technique.
Okay.
Training and propagation techniques for various crops. I really think that, local farmers, especially, in the places where those crops have a long historical footprint, are pretty expert in all the different ways in terms of propagating the plants. I mean, until you get to things, that are sort of beyond their scientific scope.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to go ahead and encourage the chat here. If you guys, you have access to Dr. Coco, you're in the chat. We always like to be a show that's very chat engaging. So if you have any questions for the good doctor, post them up there, and we'll try to be a good host and get them in. One thing, Doc, I guess I don't want to go off the plant training grow challenge before we finish up anything. We should probably, you said the flip date. Do we know who the sponsor is going to be for the giveaways for the plant training grow challenge yet?
Not quite yet ready to announce, but
put you on the spot. Oh,
yeah, I think we will soon. We definitely have some hot irons in the fire, as it were. But we're trying to sort of we do a lot of giveaways all of a sudden, right? So we've got 2 big giveaways coming up. And this actually reminds me, guys, it's July 31st. We're doing the Grower Love giveaway drawing today. So I think if you haven't yet registered for the latest round of sort of bonus actions, or just into the Grower Love giveaway at all, I think there's still time for that today. So, we're setting up the first PTGC, and that's on the deals and discounts page at cocoforcannabis.com. I sort of assume everybody already knows these things when I come on your shows. Anyways,
we try to, I think every single show we shout out the Grower Love giveaway. And so I think most of our listeners do kind of know it's up, but yeah.
I think the Grower Love giveaway is like the best deal for home growers out there. You just sign up. We don't harass you at all when you register, and we just give stuff away.
Yeah.
So.
And I have that link posted in chat. If you just click on it, it'll take you right over there. You can sign right up. It's so easy.
Yep. After the show. Do that after the show.
Yeah, do that after the show. A separate browser window or something.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so yeah, we're just talking about this because September 1st, we'll have the next Grower Love giveaway, and we're going to announce that here shortly because this one's going off today, and we're planning the first Plant Training Grow Challenge giveaway. So yeah, expected announcements about these things pending very shortly here, but not quite yet.
You know what? This is a perfect day for me to. I keep notes here from when we do these shows. I just write stuff down. So anyhow, my notes say Grower Love giveaway, which you touched on, and it goes off today. I want to take a second and personally say thanks. I'm part of Grow Sponsor, which we're going to shout out here. Is if you're part of Grow Sponsor, Doc puts you on the Grower Love giveaway, and people can come to you. They can subscribe to. They go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and they get an entrance into the giveaway. And it's so cool because every time he puts my name up there, my wife and I and all of us, we like to think we share this channel as a group, and so we appreciate you getting us the extra attention and followers, so we can get the word out there and all that.
Absolutely,
so that's cool. I always see a bump, man, every time you do that.
That's what the Grower Love giveaway, really, that's what the Grower Love. It's like to give back to the audience. I think everybody sort of assumes that, it's about giving a prize away, and that's sort of giving the love. And that's definitely sort of part of it. But the other part of it is, yeah, we recommend as bonus actions in these giveaways, following a bunch of different types of accounts. A lot of them are Grow Sponsor accounts, but we put people from other shows that I do, like the live show on Sunday afternoon those guys get listed in the Grower Love giveaway. Other people from the community we put up there. And then, you follow those accounts and they get a boost in their following, and you get an extra chance to win the prize, and everybody just sort of wins. It seems like, and that whole giveaway thing, Jordan Jackson, who we should shout out always, sort of who helps run Coco for Cannabis, or who runs, I shouldn't say help run. Jordan's invaluable. All the work, sort of the nuts and the bolts work over there, frees me up.
She's definitely invaluable. She helps me so. She helps us so much. Me and my wife are always getting a hold of Jordan. She helps us with so many things. And you're right. I think it's well worth taking a section, because we love her, and we want to shout out Jordan, JJ.
She's awesome. Awesome grow me right there.
Yeah, so she started doing this thing, and then we kind of figured out how to make it work like this. And I love the Grower Love giveaway, so we always try to get a pretty big prize for it every month and get a lot of sort of excitement behind it. But yeah, I hope everybody registers. I hope you guys, spread that love around and win prizes.
Yeah, and I think and here's the crazy thing. Jordan had told me that, I think it was maybe, I don't know, I want to say 4 or 5 giveaways back, the person that won had registered on the last day and only had like 8 entrants. And so it doesn't matter that there's all these other people. I mean, it's just a randomly, just because you don't have as many entrants as someone else, it's still worth going over and getting.
It's not fixed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's worth going over and getting involved, man. It's good stuff. And we also should take a moment to shout out Chelia Coco, Doc's wife, who works with Grow Sponsor, and another person that I'm constantly beating their eardrum a little bit and asking questions and getting help that I probably could figure out on my own. Sometimes I feel bad, but so Grow Sponsor, can we talk about Grow Sponsor? I know it's been growing as a website and as an entity. It's been growing and things are changing. It's getting better. So if you want to,
yeah, we just launched those profile pages. I hope you guys that are in Grow Sponsor are enjoying that and using those. That was a cool project that Jordan did a lot of work on that project too. Inshallah. And we're just now working on the rest of that. So for people that don't know, Grow Sponsor is a program that we started where we work with some of the brands that I've been working with, people like Photon Tech and Metagrow, and arrange like product evaluations for growers that, influencers on social media and different places, usually Instagram and YouTube. So we get them, product valuation contracts and manage affiliate relationships with them.
And one thing I want to jump in here, Doc, and say, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but these the Grow Sponsor, one of the things that really hits home for me, and I've known you for a long time, so I know your character, but one thing that hits home for me is that in your Grow Sponsor contracts, it'll say in right plain English, we only want honest reviews about this product. Solid, honest reviews. Don't lie, don't hype it up, or whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that's important. Not that that's something that goes on in other places, but when I read that part of the contract, it hit home with me, and I was thinking, that's solidarity, or that's being a thorough dude, and that, I think that hits home with me and all of our co-hosts and the people listening. So that's
integrity is everything, man. I mean, integrity is absolutely everything in this game. If you get caught out sort of like recommending things to people just because it's making you money and you don't think it's a good deal or a good product or something, I mean, nobody's going to listen to you ever again, right? And that applies to everybody as an individual, but it's like Grow Sponsor as a whole too. We don't want to be sort of like pushing fake reviews. And
sure, I think it's well known that anything you put your name on is pretty much a good product, as far as you know.
It's trusted because other growers have used it. They're giving an honest review. It's the place to go if you're a new grower and you're not sure what products to get.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's how we think about it. It's like a responsibility. Thousands of people join this, let's call it a hobby, pastime, passion, whatever it is, like home growing, right? Like every week, every month, whatever. And they kind of need advice. I mean, you don't want to just sort of browse on Amazon and, buy things based on the product descriptions. You need people that have done this before to sort of give good advice. But that's also a real responsibility to make sure that, you know, you're looking out for your audience, you're looking out for the growers that are out there that are coming up and doing this. So I definitely think always my first loyalty is to growers, right? I mean, that's how we've always sort of gotten into the cannabis community, was as growers. And most product company reps and stuff don't come in as growers. They come in as salespeople looking to pitch you something. So I definitely think we approach it differently. We think of ourselves sort of as, at Grow Sponsor at least, as representing the growers as we negotiate with sponsors, the product companies that want to do evaluations and have their products out there, right? So I always evaluate the products before we bring it into Grow Sponsor, and all of the you know, influencers in Grow Sponsor get to have anything that we do for at least 2 weeks. And if they don't like it, it doesn't meet up their standards or whatever, they just ship it back for free, and they don't have any more sort of obligations in that.
I like the word integrity. That's exactly what that means.
Yeah, it's integrity. I mean, and if you're honest, you know, and if you're straight up with people, this advice is useful. I mean, people actually want to know this stuff, but they want to get it from real growers that are being straight up with them, that aren't, you know, just doing things because it makes them a buck.
This is also a good way for like people like that are in the Grow Sponsor to try these good products. And then you want your grow friends to have those good products, because you're like, wow, this is working really, really good in my situation. Your situation's similar. I want you to try it, because, you know, this is going to make your life easier. I want your grow experience to be that much more better, you know, that much more rewarding.
Agreed. It's one of those things. You find something good that works really well, especially when you're stubborn like us with change, and you're like, you want to shout it from the rooftops for all the people that, you know, you care about. So I get that. So yeah, the Grow Sponsors have been a great opportunity for me to try a few products and to meet some great people and work with you guys. And it's just been an overall wonderful experience. So I recommend anybody that if something you think you might want to get into, to shoot over to growsponsor.com, which my wife, when she's done, she'll post a link there, or anybody with a wrench can post a link there for us, and somebody who might want to get involved can. And if you're listening to this on the podcast on Anchor, it would be, growsponsor.com, right?
Growsponsor.com, yep.
Cool. Then while we're here, let's mention, you know, everybody knows CFC, but some of the things I like to point out. Yeah. Some of the stuff I like to point out is they have a live chat over there, and you can find a lot of help if you're newer, or if you just want to help other people, or just have actively engaging conversation about breeding, soil, or any other. It doesn't have to be cocoa, lights. There's always a wide array of people there, and
such an amazing resource, really. I mean, I pop in there every once in a while, and before I start chatting, I always just sort of like read what's going on, and there's like so much good information being offered for free to like anybody that stops by. So, and you can usually, you can't get that in a lot of other places without like a healthy dose of skepticism. And I mean, I guess that's always warranted there too, but I think that the community sort of knows enough that if everybody is sort of saying the same thing, or you get somebody like, oh no, you can trust this person, or they have like, you know, proven grower badge or something, then it's solid resource. I definitely think that new growers in particular should take advantage of that.
And you also have over there is all the articles. So if someone's giving you advice, you can always cross-reference it with an article. I always like to tell people, if you really go through and just take a half hour or so and browse through the articles, you'll find most of the answers that you're looking for. And then it's nice to help. Then you can have some engaging chat talk and really get to know a little bit deeper about it. And I still do that all the time over there. So many people teach me stuff over there that I never will I ever stop learning. And they have the strain review. This is something we don't mention enough. And I tried to once in a while.
We should mention the strain review more.
The strain review is badass. I don't think there's going to be a more comprehensive strain review on the internet. And I know I'm a little biased because, you know, we're all friends, but it just is. Can you tell people what some of the stipulations are for the strain review and what they might win if they kind of get involved in that?
Yeah, we gotta set up the next strain review giveaway. We're gathering registrations now, but we haven't. So if you do a strain review, you're registered for the next one, but we haven't announced what it is yet. But yeah, the strain review. So this is, like you say, it's a very comprehensive strain review. So it talks about all aspects of sort of growing the plant. And then all the aspects of sort of using or smoking or whatever the plants are, like the effects, the flavors, all of that. And you know, I designed most of this. I had a lot of feedback from the steering committee and elsewhere, but I wanted to be thorough. And you know, I was always frustrated when I was like browsing for strains that either the strain reviews like seemed really unreliable. Like just
kind of
written on the
biased.
seed breeder's site, like the pure fire or something. It's like, no, I need more than, you know, 3 words with a bunch of emojis. You know, or in some other places I could find like journals talking about sort of how the plant may have grown, but then it stopped when they harvested, and I didn't ever sort of understand sort of what the plant may have been like. So I wanted both of that and all in sort of one place. I wanted you to be able to see sort of what was this plant like to grow, and then what was it like to smoke or use, and to be able to sort of sort and look for things based on, you know, any one of those different characters. So I think it's a great resource when somebody takes the time to write a strain review, but of course it made it kind of complicated to write a strain review in the first place. And so it's a fairly involved editor. We spent a long time, like months, working with the developers, sort of designing that functionality and building that editor for, you know, entering your strain reviews. You don't have to do it all in one setting. You can save it and come back and keep working on it later. And you can even post it and come back and sort of edit things after it's been posted. But I think sort of the in-depth nature of it scares a lot of, you know, otherwise potential strain review writers off. And so that's why we offered the prize, right? Like basically, if you put in the effort and you get through writing a good strain review, that's going to be a resource for our community for, you know, ever. Basically, people will continue to read that and be inspired and think about writing their own strain reviews better because of sort of the effort that you put into yours and all of that, right?
Yeah. And there's pictures
to give a reward. Yeah.
You can put pictures, and it's very detailed with how it gets into it. And like you said, it would be non-biased because no one's trying to sell you this seed. I'm just telling you what happened in my experience. Yes.
It's a new grower that's never tried that strain. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to be training it. You're going to be super cropping it. What, you know, as a super short one.
And you don't want to just go to the person who's selling you the seeds and read the reviews that are there, because they're probably eliminating the bad ones. Like it hermed on me, like, you know, 11 of 12 hermed. Like they probably delete those reviews, right? But we're not going to. We're trying to, like, you know, share the information amongst growers. So that's, I feel. Yeah, so the only thing is, it's one of these things like, you know, if you build it, they will come, but I scared everybody. It's made it a little bit too complicated. So sort of, you know, get stoked up for doing a good strain review and come on over, check out the editor, figure out your favorite strain, organize some of your pictures, because you can organize pictures, but like seedling pictures and like early flowering pictures and harvest pictures and bud pictures, and you can upload all of that. You don't have to do all of these things. You just sort of can.
Oh, quick tip on that. Put all your pictures in one folder.
Yeah, organize all your pictures first.
So much easier when you go through the form and fill it in there. Yeah. You should be there should actually you kind of see the preview in the other reviews of how it's built, how it's made. So go see the other ones and see how it looks, and that'll give you an idea about the pictures you need to get. Put them all in that same one folder. Then when you start it up and you just go pick the pictures and you're good to go.
Yeah. But again, you don't need to have all of those. It gives you like 6 different types of photos to upload. You don't need to upload 6 different types of photos. You just can. And it will slot them into your review in different places based on sort of what type of a picture it is.
Yeah, that's good. I
think it's 4 per section or something like that. Right?
Yeah, I think it's up to 4.
And it splits it into 2. They're different paragraphs. I've done a few.
Yeah, well, thank you. Absolutely. For everybody that's done a strain review, thank you. we're building a library here, a resource that people can go and check out. And yeah, if you haven't poked around, like poke around, and you can click on the little tags for the different strains, and it'll take you to a list of all the other strain reviews that have that same tag. So anyways.
Yeah, I appreciate you going over. That's very detailed, and I think it's important people know that's out there as a resource, and they can check it out. Even if you're
let me address this question. See, person one asked, anything that you upload to a forum, and the strain reviews is a forum at Coco for Cannabis. We built a program that optimizes and removes all your EXIF data, your personal data from your photos as it's being uploaded. And there's actually a little screen there that says, your data is your images are being processed and personal data is being removed. That's right, that is in the chat room, we don't control that server, so that's a different system, so be aware of that if you're in the chat room at Coco.
And the proof is the image will be sideways sometimes. It'll remove even the orientation tag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to redo it.
It's definitely working.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in Coco for Cannabis in the forum. Yeah. Exactly. Then we had to add the re-rotate, but yeah, we strip everything off of your photos so that there's no risk.
No doubt.
It's important to note that anonymity is held in high regard at Coco for Cannabis, and we try to keep everybody safe and private as much as you want to be. You can be private. So this will give us a leeway here. I got one more shout out I'd like to do, and then we can get back into some questions here, if that's all right with you, Doc.
Absolutely.
So this is a little bit of a new thing that's come up, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, and I don't want to miss anybody when I'm calling things out. But my wife and I have been blessed to be involved in the project with the Let's Be Buds show and some other shows, which is where I'm not sure who came and went all into our group so far. It's not, so I don't want to miss anybody. But anyhow, it's the Last Prisoner Project. And we're going to have a chat-a-thon on the Let's Be Buds channel on September 18th, which is a Sunday, from noon to midnight. And so this show will update on how it's going to affect our show, but it's going to be a wonderful cause. Our great friend, Dr. MJ Coco, has agreed to make an appearance as a special guest, like a cameo, talk about it, support it a little bit. And we're possibly maybe working on something to give away. I don't think all the details are worked out. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but we're doing a letter writing campaign that day. We're going to do a fundraiser. And it's just going to be a good time, and we want to make sure that everybody's aware of it. And it's going to be. Like I said, I don't have all my notes in front of me, so I'm not sure what I don't want to miss anything. But I think that's a good overcap. And I wanted to say thanks for your willingness to do that, Dr. MJ.
Yes, we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I look forward to that. I mean, it's a wonderful project. I give you a lot of support, Smart, for sort of getting behind that. And it's a tiny contribution on my end, and I'm happy to do it for sure. So I look forward to that, and we'll definitely look for some giveaway prizes to do during that.
Cool. And I would like to take a quick minute to let our listeners know that you can, go to the Last Prisoner Project, which I posted the link in chat, and write a prisoner, get a pen pal. These prisoners are doing life sentences for things that we're doing right now over plant. So if you could offer them encouragement, let them know that we're out here thinking about them and fighting for them, that'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating, man. I mean, to be sort of on the other side of the bars and watching the liberalization in policies on this, and
and it's tough because you want to get behind something, and I like to stay. I don't ever want to seem political on one side or another or anything. So I try, but this is something that I try to get involved in because this is where my heart's at. These people, like my wife said, they've been taken away from their families, their homes, their jobs, and for nonviolent offenses with cannabis flower that I do every day. And it's something that I just wanted to say, since I started this show is a spinoff from Dr. Coco's collaborative. He's all about grower love, collaboration. So from that chat spun off this show, and and also with the growing with my fellow growers. But we've met so many great people since we started this show, like Let's Be Buds and a bunch of other people we have listed here. We'll shout out that really has inspired us at a whole nother level. And this is all fun stuff, and we appreciate it. We want everybody to, if you're interested, get a hold of us. We'll get you more involved. And if you're not, we appreciate you sticking around while we went over that. So grower love to you too.
Yeah, we have some questions from chat too.
We have some questions from chat I want to get to, Doc, because chat's the heart and soul, right?
Absolutely.
And you want to shout out your show tonight, Doc? You're a big part of that show. It's like,
yeah, every week, we do the Growing with My Fellow Grower show on the Cheap Home Grow YouTube channel. Jack Greenstock, who was in this chat when we started up, he's probably around, just back smoking bowl, hosts that. And, there's a great panel with like Brandon Rust and Spartan Grown and Matthew Gates, Zenthanol, Sink Angel. Bunch of other growers that come together to do that show. We've been doing that for like 3 years now. So
Can't forget our good friend Cal.
That's at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Cheap Home Grow YouTube channel.
Yes, our good friend. He's right. There's so many people. Sometimes it's hard. You got the American one and
the American one.
Kyle from Predicated Breeding.
Yeah.
The grower, and like I think you mentioned some of those, but it's a fun time. I've gotten so much information from there, and that's one of the places that
Aaron the grower, ATG Acres.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of great guys, and it's a good group that has been growing for a long time. We have like various sort of expertise or interests in different aspects of growing. We definitely don't all see eye to eye on every aspect of growing. But I think that there's a lot of mutual respect, and
that's good.
That dynamic creates a good show, hopefully.
Yeah, that's
one
good.
way to skin a cat.
You don't want just a big echo chamber. If somebody has something to say against what you say or some conflicting information, you want to get that out there and clear the air. So yeah, I'd rather have not be just a big echo chamber where everybody just agrees with what everybody else says.
Good discussion.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I also think it does come through very clearly that there is a major respect for each other and a friendship, that you guys have all evolved in, and you really work together as a team now as that panel has evolved. And Jax does such a great job at like coordinating the show. And I tried to take a lot of tips from him, but I have a long way to go.
It's amazing sort of how it just comes together and works, and has for like 3 years, right? Because like the original host dropped off, and Jack kind of just picked up the reins in a fairly informal arrangement, and everybody's just been happy with it. And he does a lot of work and sort of setting that up every week, and everybody just shows up. There's not like a big effort involved in sort of keeping people coordinated or rallying the troops, and nobody complains about it. It's unsponsored. We're all doing this just to share our knowledge and sort of give back to the audience.
Oh yeah, that's tonight, everybody, from 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. I'm trying to scroll back to the here we go. Under the Dome had a question back at 12:08, and Under the Dome's a recent friend of ours, and all very excited.
New member,
yeah.
New member of Coco.
New member of Coco for Cannabis, and very excited to be a part of this. Yeah, Under the Dome. It's that's a Stephen King book, man. That's the first thing I thought of.
There's a TV show there,
Yeah.
It's also what our little seedlings are going to be soon.
Under the Dome.
Yeah, there you go.
It's fitting. Yeah.
It says, can we please ask the big man if the light green issue first time is common? Coco, first time. Holy shit, what did I just read?
Is he having like a light green issue with his plants?
That's a good thing.
Oh, okay.
A good place to be because you can fix it.
Yeah, well, a light green issue, we would need a lot more information on what's going on with your grow before we could really assess that, as far as like runoff, inflow, pH, and there's a lot going on there. But I actually thought that it was, I don't know why I read that as a green algae issue. I don't know why. So I guess
it's the fact that he showed us his plants there last time, and they were like,
light green. Remember?
That's
remember
right.
you were saying, no, you should lower the EC, and I was saying, no,
that's right.
Up it, and then
So this is what we ended up coming to conclusion. I can give the doc a good rundown. The guy had a light green plants. They were in about mid-veg. I don't think they were much bigger than that. Would you guys agree with that, mid-veg?
Week 5 or something.
Yeah, something. They weren't really
Week 5,
huge.
had they been transplanted?
I believe so.
I don't
Once,
know.
maybe not. They weren't in huge pots, and I even mentioned that. I said you'll be soon ready for a pot up.
Okay.
But they didn't look like they had outgrown the pots, in my personal opinion. Not at this time. But he was.
Is he here now?
What's that?
Is he here now?
I think so. Maybe he can type it
Throw
in
up the
there while we
link there.
get to
Tell him to
it.
come on.
Well, it can kind of get caught up when we do that and take a
Yeah.
long time. We'll try to we'll see what's let's go to one of these
Yeah.
other ones. Hey, Under the Dome, if you can maybe throw some of your information there. He was feeding
Yeah,
under
sure.
like a 650 ppm, and his runoff was a 600. But his water was really high in
Yeah,
ppm.
350 EC tap water we had there.
Yeah.
So we were
Yeah.
thinking
And the
maybe
runoff
that
was a little bit
affecting-
lower than inflow?
See, I can't remember now. I'm
Yeah.
getting a little bit confused. Shit. Let's move on to one of the
We
others.
didn't
We'll
get
try
that
to come
far.
back to that. I apologize, Under the Dome.
Wind up diagnosing some hypothetical plant.
Yeah, it's tough. Man.
There
That's
was
why I
a-
said I'm too high to get into that right
It was
now.
a little
man.
fly by night, I must admit.
There was a question from Hydroplanes Drifter about if you could go over some of the rules and regulations for the party cup. Does it have to be a party cup? Can it be in an 18-ounce container? Are there any rules to that?
Good question, Hydroplanes.
So, we're flexible. I think we've had set rules before when there's been a leader for the challenge, and then we've simply adopted. I think that these were rules originally written by
OC grower. What about OC grower?
Yeah, it was OC Grower.
Yeah, he wrote the rules originally. We had to be able to. You had to show a picture with it exposed. It couldn't be like setting in something all the time. Obviously, with the
Yeah, you
bottom
can't
down.
be
Yeah.
supporting the roots outside of the cup. If you're talking about a different shape, 18-ounce container,
Yeah, like a
That's hard-
fabric, like a
it's hard
fabric
to-
container.
But it's hard to prove it's 18 ounces. A solo cup has it stamped right in there, so it's
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can
makes
drop
no,
it
I
in
think
the-
it's
in
got
the
to be
solo
like a
cup.
plastic. I don't think you can go with a similar sized seedling bag.
Those are good questions.
Or
though.
a solo cup sized air pot.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, it does say solo
Full
cup
tech. Oh, like you
challenge,
did.
so-
Didn't you do that, Chris?
There
Yes.
might be a
Well, I
loophole,
modified my solo cup, so technically it was a solo cup. I just modified it to mimic as much
It
as I
had
could an
side
air
air
Right.
breathing tubes and
though.
everything.
I could see a loophole, here, guys.
I
If you
wanted
had
to-
like a small fabric pot, such that it would actually fit inside a party cup, right? And you could basically remove 90% of the party cup itself, like cut out the entire sidewalls except for like two little supports that held the
Whoa.
top. Right?
Yeah.
You could get creative.
You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
And then just be like, this is in my party cup. But basically, you're just
Party
growing
cup
it in a
right.
seedling bag that's like positioned inside the shell of a former party cup. But I think it's got to have the party cup sort of structure involved in it somehow, even if
I think-
that's not necessarily what's holding the media back.
This is where the word integrity comes back into it, right? Try to be on the same page,
Yeah,
in the same
yeah.
lane with the rest of us. But I think
Well,
it's
we had-
fun.
yeah.
It's cool to modify though, because you can do a lot, you can make it fun.
And I'm sure Hydroplanes Drifter was asking, because he might get a lot of that people asking, around
Yeah.
like, hey, you know about that challenge. This is a question he might have been getting at, or they might have been getting asked somewhere.
Well,
Let me say
He's-
this
Bad
too.
idea.
it's
If you win, guys, you're gonna have to like post pictures of this thing, and you don't want everybody being like cheater. I think you were cheating, right? So like,
Yeah.
that would have been cheating to me. Like, yeah, you don't want to be right up against that sort of ethical boundary, right? You want to win fair and square, and you got to be like sort of posting your pictures about this. So yeah, keep
That'd be
that
interesting
in mind.
though, because a solo cup's a solo cup. But what if you tried the solo cup size only? You're just limited by that size as far as cubic meters or whatever there.
Well, I
You
think
could
that
shape it
material,
the hell
you're
you
certainly
want.
not limited to that brand, right? But
Just
I
the
think it should
size,
be
you know?
basically
That way I could do a little baby DWC, or I could, you know what I mean? Like
Well, yeah,
anyone
we
can
had that
get
question. Like,
creative.
could you use the party cup as your net pot, right, for a DWC,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
like have the roots growing down below? That
Yeah.
The
specifically
thing,
is
it
not
can't
allowed.
hang outside of it, right? So it's got to be all
Right.
self-contained, all as long as everything fits in that net cup or that volume, you know,
And
you
now
can
I
prove
think I would
volume, you
allow
can
you to
measure it.
use the party cup as your DWC reservoir.
Exactly. It'd
Yeah.
be
You
like
know, I want to
two-parted.
say someone
you know?
tried that.
It was like a
The
crack
bottom
piece.
would be the water part
Yeah.
and the top would be the plant part.
Hey,
Well,
Right.
actually, it
Lo-
would just be on top, right? So the roots would be in the
You'd
whole
have to
cup.
like modify a shot glass to serve as your
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then you
It's to
could
find the
put
air
that on
stone.
top, I would say. Yeah, if
How
you
am I
could
gonna
keep the
find a
plant alive
solo
like
cup
that, that's
air
a feat
stone?
enough that I'd give you credit for it.
I think the whole part of having the solo cup challenge is to stimulate this kind of thought and you know,
Yeah.
getting into it and
And
just
you
having
know-
a little something different kind of fun with your plants.
I'm gonna have to go back over the journals because I could swear that I saw a party cup with, you know, someone had taken toothpicks and put that pot, that
Yeah.
small little.
I think so,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm
Something
pretty, and I
similar to-
can't recall who did it, but
It wasn't
it
full
looked
DWC
so
there, but
cool.
it was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, you know,
Do it. I think it's tough. I mean, I do not think that that's an easy way to grow a plant.
hell
Wait.
no, it's gonna be
Have
hard.
fun. You'll learn a
Yeah.
lot. And
I
have
that's
an
really what
RC
this side
versus a
challenge
car.
is.
I have
It's
a question, Doc.
miniaturized.
Do you have to have a journal in the plant training challenge in order to do the solo cup challenge?
Yes, but the solo cup can be the only thing that you're doing.
Oh, okay.
You can
Oh,
only
after
Going after a
document that.
strain, yeah.
Yeah,
If
it
you
can-
want to do
I
the
may-
solo cup challenge, yeah, you do it in your plant training grow challenge, but you don't have to do any other plants. You could just do that. If that's all.
Okay, guys, I was wondering because I'm going to be taking a little break from growing. I haven't taken a break in 4 years, just been growing back to back to back. So
Done?
this year I decided to take a couple of months off just for myself to get out and do stuff. And, you know, so I wouldn't be available for the plant training challenge, which, you know, I'm sad because I'm not doing it. But I was wondering about the solo cup challenge, if I
The
was able
same
to still
flip day,
do that.
Can you still get in position by that flip day?
Yeah, actually, I have clones going right now that I could theoretically just pick one out and use.
Yeah.
They're all in solo cups.
Perfect.
So yeah, I could do that.
Yep. So that's it. You just have to plant in a solo cup on
So
October
would it be a
1st, put it in
misfit?
12-12 lighting.
Would you have to put that in a misfit?
It depends on how you're gonna train the plant in the solo cup.
Exactly.
And
So
yeah, that's
you could, yeah, you could do whatever if you're gonna top it, if you're gonna bend it, if you're gonna do, you don't have any idea. Maybe it's
Mainline
misfit.
solo.
Yeah, I
it
would
was
have
re-
no idea how you would train a plant in a solo cup.
all
You have to
that-
train
all
Oh,
the
that-
I've
cup
done
itself.
it. Yeah, I've talked to him a couple of times. I don't think I fully did a main line, or a manifold for that matter, but ended up with, I think, 4 mains as a result of 2 toppings. The last time I did this party cup
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah. And that was, you know, I set up auto watering. I only had 1 zone. So all the plants were getting watered, like, I don't know, not even as many times as Mom Poker does it though. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but it was 12, I think. I can't remember anymore. However many times my timer would be able to.
Uh-huh. I was trying to find a picture of ours. It's so far back that I can't seem to.
Yeah,
find it.
we topped it we topped it once at least.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty fun.
And yeah, we did a journal. I did a journal on that, and then Smut did on the rest of the grow. But he helped along. Like we take care of our plants together. So he's just as responsible for the awesomeness of that plant. And it was a silver haze, which is one of my favorites. And it turned out to be decent smoke.
Not bad at all. And it was
For
cool
a
to see
party
what
cup.
it was cool to see what root bonding will do
Yeah,
to it. It's
'cause-
kind of it was fun, but it was also kind of enlightening, you know.
And it
because-
was an experiment because I was worried about the roots getting just balled up at
Yep.
the bottom, and I wanted to mitigate that by mimicking the air pot. So
Were you
it
able
was
to
a
keep it
lot of
wet?
fun. I can't wait to do it again.
So the challenge there, right? Cocoa, as you guys know, when cocoa gets dry, well, those of you that grow in cocoa, it becomes pretty hydrophobic and it becomes tough to re-wet. That's one of the reasons that, you know, you kind of don't want to ever let it dry out. In a party cup, that's tough because there's not a lot of water. And if you get a healthy plant, it will just like suck the water out of that cup like it's got a straw in there. And even if you're on pretty high frequency fertigation, you can get the top to dry out in between waterings. And then it's really hard to even get water in. The roots are so dense and the cocoa becomes hydrophobic on top that, you know, sometimes I'd be tempted almost to like, you know, take an actual straw and like open holes into lower in the media to allow the water to penetrate.
Can you buy hospital IV drips?
Yeah, yes,
Because
you can.
that would be the ultimate solution. Just get the right drip ratio.
Poke the needle in
No.
there.
Yeah,
I
there's
want
going
to
to
say,
be zero chances of,
Yeah.
you know, hypoxia in this situation. The container is so small that the roots are not going to drown. You could keep it under constant drip.
Berkshire Bud
You know,
did
if you
that.
drip it from high enough, it'll kind of
yeah,
splash in the cocoa there when it hits.
he had that IV bag strapped to the bars of his tent and had it going right into his solo cup.
It was perfect.
You can check his journal out over at Coco for Cannabis.
Berkshire
Bud
for sure.
is pretty cool.
We got, looks like I didn't see any more. We have a question from the show here, Doc, for you that we were talking about earlier before you came on, if it's all right. It's kind of multiple part. I'll just lay it out there and you can kind of maybe just speak on the subject if that's all right. So I have it written down as wake up versus Emerson when it comes to lighting. And you have the blues and you have your reds and people use these to put your plants to sleep, to wake your plants up. And I was confused on the actual, is the Emerson effect the same as the wake up effect? And
No.
do you recommend this? How does it benefit my plants versus, is that something I want to do indoors? You know, things like that.
If you have a dedicated 730 nanometer light, then I can teach you some tricks about what to do with it. But I don't necessarily think that it's worth going out and getting a 730 nanometer dedicated light. So there's that answer. In order to do the sort of quick sleep, that's what you would do. You would flood the tent or the grow space with 730 nanometer light after the normal lights go off for about half an hour, and you could shave time off of the dark period. The advantage there is longer lights on period, more quantum yield, larger harvests. So there is an advantage. It's tough to give really precise, but if you can flood your canopy with 730 for half an hour right after the lights go out, you can shave a couple hours off.
What kind of UMOs for that, Doc? As far as the 730 nanometer light?
It doesn't have to be a lot, I don't think. It's not a density issue so much as it's a signal issue.
Okay, so just perceiving it a bit like the trigger for flowering there. It's like
Yeah,
0.1 UMOs or whatever.
Exactly.
Doesn't have to be too high.
But I don't think you can just give it. It's not like the little, 730 light that shines on your night vision camera or whatever to illuminate that area. That's not going to be enough.
No, I know. I've been doing it. Actually, shit. I've been doing it all along, but it's 8 something. I think that I can kind of see it though. I see it with my bare eyes. The red light there.
Yeah, you can barely see 730 if you have, young eyes. You can barely see 730. It looks really dim. If you see,
I think it's got a wide spectrum of IR. You know what I mean? Like the security cam stuff, because it's a cheapo camera. It's an LED, and it probably overshoots. You know what I mean? It gets into the visible a bit.
It can, yeah.
Well,
down sort of
meaning
below
the focus is
700.
on that 7 or higher one, like 800 nanometer, but there's bleed down to 7, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I see the red.
Right, but I'm just saying that's not going to be enough in terms of density. You'd probably need 25, 50 micromoles per square meter of that far.
Might be close because my camera was right on it there. But the thing is, and it doesn't switch till the lights go off. So it actually would turn on as the lights would go off, but it would stay on the whole night. So I don't know that maybe that was detrimental there, but if I could get it to stop after half an hour, then I could potentially induce it just with my security cams. I just have to put it real close to it. Yeah.
The problem there is you're going to have to sort of test this, you know, how much you can shorten that, and like how close to that, you know, sort of intersex edge do you want to get?
And what's the return for what's that saying? Is the berry worth the squeeze?
So that's for flower, right? So flower, you would potentially be able to get away with like 11 hours of dark instead of 12
or 10
or 10 even. Nice.
Yeah. And go to 13, 14 hours of light.
Well, damn.
So
we want to hear those tricks, Doc.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Experimenter. I want to do it.
That's definitely one. Now, it requires having your own 730 nanometer light, right? You're not going to be able to do this with a 730 nanometer chips that are sort of embedded into your grow light. If there
what
are
about
any.
These newer ones that where you can dim and just have the 730s? They're probably just not enough of them. Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
Like some lights, like fixtures have those 730s in them, but they're dimmable, or you can take them off like the Spectrum.
You can't run just them.
Yeah, exactly. You can't turn off the whites and run just the reds, right? With those fixtures. Yeah.
Right.
You have to buy a second.
You need to do.
You have to get a second.
They're almost there. They have them, but they, you know, they need separate control.
Yeah, exactly. So likely that's on one side. The other side, and let's note that Chiba Man wants to talk about the gas.
Yeah, we got that one marked down here. That was coming up next. Later.
I'm not trimming there.
The other trick in this, guys, I'm not sure it's as much of a trick in terms of the wake up. You know, if you're running a high density in your space and you're kind of pushing the limits with density, then I definitely think there's an advantage to a ramp in cycle when the lights first turn on. That's not so much to like mimic sort of the spectral changes that occur in the morning as it is to gradually increase the PPFD on the plants. They're not totally ready to get hit with the fullest density of light straight out of darkness. And that will stress plants like pretty much every day. Not a lot, but it stresses them every day to certain, like, you know, go from pitch black to total brightness. And when your LEDs first turn on, they're up to 10% stronger than they will be when they're running at full temperature. So if you've got it tuned to sort of like full density, you're actually getting like 10% more when they first turn on. Like that's the most light your plants are exposed to the whole day, is like the first minute that the lights turn on. So that's not great, and it stresses them a bit. So if you do have this sunrise feature or a feature in your timer or your control unit that allows you to, like, you know, start on at a lower dimmer percentage and ramp up through time, I think there's an advantage to that.
Good idea. Sure.
Yeah. Hey, the sunset on the other side, not so much. Plants are able to process their sort of full density light until you stop giving it to them. And so on that end, you don't have to sort of do a sunset. You can just kill the lights. And then if you want to sort of maximize things in terms of light cycle, it would be flooding the canopy with 730 nanometer light for half an hour.
Nice. This is all good stuff, man. And this is why it's nice to hear it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't remember even ever talking about this on another show, those things sort of together like that. So, I mean, have at it. If that's something, a 730 nanometer light, I would also run it if you went around to go out and get one of these things. I would also run it during the flowering period, for sure.
No, it's just I've been hearing that stuff, and I wasn't sure what was, you know, true and what wasn't there. There seemed to be a little confusion between Emerson effect and that morning.
So Emerson effect is a relationship between light that's above and below 680 nanometers, 680 nanometers. So often this is between you know, red light, but like 660 nanometer light and 690 nanometer light will show Emerson effect, where if you provide both of them, the plant will have a higher photosynthetic yield than you would predict by how much photosynthetic yield the plant would have with either of them individually. So this is a game where the sum is greater than, you know,
It's
the sum
over
of its
unity
parts.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, the total is greater than the sum of its parts. So
Socrates,
you know,
right?
recently, this is some of the far red research that connects with why I now do EPAR testing.
Right.
Is they've
Free
just
energy.
discovered that higher nanometer light also has properties where it's contributing to the photosynthetic efficiency in relationship with shorter wavelength light. But if you give that light alone above 700 nanometers, it will get no photosynthetic effect. But if you combine it with shorter wavelength light, then its effect is equivalent to the shorter wavelength light.
It's like it's boosting it, but it won't do nothing on its own. Right.
Right, exactly.
It's
And it's
Well,
boosting it equivalently to what just adding more of it would have done.
Right. And I think, you know, you mentioned something just a second ago, Doc, about how lights, you let your lights warm up for a while before you test them because they level out with the heat when they heat up. And they're the brightest when they first are, they run most efficient. When they're cool.
That's a trick. And let me just tell you, that's a trick that I think I suspect a lot of manufacturers do when they do their own in-house testing. Based on the numbers that they come out with, I'm like, yeah, you know, I could see you getting these numbers if you turned it on and tested it cold, because it's about a 10% sort of boost in numbers.
And that's an impressive number on when you're selling a light, or you know, or if you're trying to. Well, I guess what I was getting at was, you taught us here before that plants have evolved to survive darkness, that it's actually a stressor, even though they seem to grow during, you know, things are happening, they're growing, they're, what is it, synthesizing and all these other things that, you know, a little bit beyond what I can grasp. But so when the light comes on, blam, and it's the strongest it can be, that's almost like a double whammy. They're coming from what is considered to be somewhat of a stressor, I would say, is the dark period, you know, going into light, and then it's the strongest it can be. So I think that's a good point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And photosynthesis is a process, right? That when it's not like any other process, when it's not running, it takes a little while to sort of wind up. The plant needs to sort of respond to its sudden need to begin absorbing carbon dioxide. The stomata have to open. That gas exchange has to start taking place. And it's not, I mean, it's quick, but like it takes a while for the plant to respond to that. So yeah, easing them in is certainly helpful. Because a lot of us are running like full density light, right? Like as much light as we can. So certainly if you're in that category, you're giving them too much light when the lights first turn on, probably.
Right.
So
what is the name of that effect? Not the Emerson effect, but the other one there, that morning wake up effect. Is there a name for that, a term for it?
Well, no, I mean, the manufacturers are just calling it like sort of the sunrise mode on their light, but all we're really talking about, I mean, this isn't something that would exist in nature. In nature, the sun sort of does gradually increase the density of light that it's supplying to plants. But in a grow tent, what happens is, you know, we blast it with the most light, it's basically high noon at sunrise.
Yeah.
And then it drops off and becomes steady after that. So yeah, there's not sort of a name per se, but you just want to sort of be aware that that's how LEDs work. So it's not necessarily how plants work.
So they came up with that potentially after, like for that blammo of light there in the morning.
I don't know. I think they probably came up with sunrise, sunset as a marketing gimmick, because a lot of growers sort of buy things based on the impression that if it mimics nature, it's going to be better than if it doesn't mimic nature. So there's a lot of marketing surrounding that with lights. And I think
in this case, it would be kind of true, though.
Those issues.
Right. In this case, it would kind of be true, right? For that dimming feature there, the morning.
Yeah,
and evening
but
dim.
really, I think we got into this because they're talking about
it's more the morning one
during that as well, which you could do more blue or, you know, more red shift or whatever. during different times of this. I don't see much of an advantage to playing around like that. I do see an advantage to just ramping up the density like the sun would normally ramp up on the plants.
Gotcha.
And like you
Just
said,
wait.
at the end, it doesn't matter. You can just shut it off. And there's no detriment. It's really just the
plants don't
wake
need
up.
to sort of wind down. It's
Right.
not. Yeah, they can just come sort of grinding to a sudden halt. That's fine.
For a
It's not like
programmer, it's half the work. You know what I mean? So I just have to do the wake up and not the shut down. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's good information. I appreciate
Get on
you
it.
taking the time.
We
Yeah, I
want it.
appreciate- If you appreciate you taking the time to explain that for us, because it's a lot of people ask that sort of things, and it's hard to differentiate the cost benefit analysis or whatever, even the time input, like how much time it's going to take me to buy this light, set it up, put it on its own kind of whatever I got to do to make that happen. And I sometimes I just feel like you said, I don't know, the full spectrum light works great, man. That seems like a lot of extra work for me personally.
It is a lot of extra work, and I think that's worth saying here. If you can do these already because you have a light that
Right.
has some of these things, then
Exactly.
then set it up. If not, I struggle to think much of this is worth the investment for a lot of home growers. And I bet that if we talked for 15 minutes, I'd come up with some other things that would be kind of like a better investment for your grow
Right.
than, a 730 nanometer light to send them into sleep sooner, or, a controller that can allow you to do the sunrise mode. That is becoming more popular. And I'm seeing that now, not just like on the Metagrow light that I tested recently, which is certainly, an affordable light that has that built in. But there's other lights that are coming at sort of the home grower market that have some of these features like sunrise that are going to be part of it.
They've had that for quite a while. It's just most of the manufacturers didn't put that into their lights because of expense.
Right.
They were trying to keep the cost down for the customer, and because I have an old kind LED light that will do the sunrise and sunset effect, and I can tune the spectrum as it's the sun's coming up or the light is coming up, and as it's going to bed or sunset, I can tune that spectrum too to more mimic what you would see in nature. But I never did see a difference in my yields or the plant response doing it, so I never
Is
use
it
it. Or I
just
stopped
tuning, or
using
is
it.
it also dimming?
It's dimming as well.
Yeah, I
it's
think
kind
that,
of
like I
what
said,
you're
dimming's probably more important.
It was
than-
a
The price
was
might have
a
shocked you though.
$1,500 light, brand new.
Okay.
A while ago. That was a blurple.
Yeah,
Had all the
yeah,
features.
that's one of the blurple lights. But it had individual controls for your reds, your blues, and then more of your kind of your mixture, your whites and oranges, and a little bit of blue, plus
I
your
think
ultraviolets and your far reds as well.
I'm gonna go clean
Yeah.
my scissors there. I'll be right back.
I think a lot of that is more geared towards marketing than sort of horticultural science. A lot of the tunability of the spectrum is something that will sell lights, but it's tough to back up in terms of
Trial.
how to use them effectively or what we would do differently. And generally for cannabis growers, it becomes, until you get up to the maximum density that you can get, just keep adding density is the most important thing to get a better harvest.
Right. That's what I have written. It's nice to know. I appreciate knowing all this, but because I'm not going to implement it in mine, but I still want to know about it and learn the science behind it. But I think one of your main goals has always been, Doc, geared towards like a newer grower, newer listener. And I try to keep always mindful of that, because a lot of the people in the chat here know a lot of this, but somebody new might be coming along, listening to the podcast. I think it's important to mention when it comes to your light is to make sure you're getting good flux in the proper ranges, and good distribution. You don't have to really concern yourself with a lot of the other metrics that go along with light at the moment if you're newer. And like Doc said, if you're in a position where you have these or you're well, I guess, far into this enough to where everything else is in place, now that's something you're freed up to play with, then that's another thing. But for the new person listening, I think that it's good to know this stuff and get your feet into the light science, but some of this can make it to where it could be overwhelming for you. So this is it's advanced for me, so I can just imagine how, you know, a newer person listening might think. So,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
a
wonder,
pretty advanced light conversation. I would agree with that. Some of it I think is easy to follow. I think some of the, when you're talking about differences between spectrum and density or intensity, I think it can get growers sort of twisted around. And I think a lot of growers don't have some of the controllability with their lights. But I just tested something cool that I wanted to bring up in this, and it's sort of by way of previewing that. I said I didn't want to disclose too many of the upcoming prizes, but there's going to be one of them is related to what I'm about to say. Mars Hydro's got a new control box that they're selling as an individual control box, as well as including on their lights. It's just like if you have a Mars Hydro fixture, it's a little gray thing with the dimmer knob. They got one with Bluetooth control now, and you can just upgrade your light and get the new control box and add Bluetooth to it. And they have like a little sunrise and sunset feature in that. Yeah, so
new stuff, man, new toys. We love that stuff, right?
I think that's going to be a cool thing. If you guys are running old Mars Hydro lights, you'll be able to upgrade all of them to have Bluetooth control pretty easily. And I look for other manufacturers to sort of make things like that and make this stuff easier. App integration is going to become cheaper, and it's been sort of a price prohibitive for a lot of companies, but competition's getting intense in that space. There's not more gains to really be made easily with performance of the basic light in terms of efficiency, coverage, density, all of those things. They're all getting really good with that stuff. So yeah, look for some of these features to be more available at entry-level price points.
Yeah. That's I wanted to take a second and say, Doc, I appreciate you coming on today, man. I know you're busy all the time, and you've been pretty good to us in our show. And
absolutely, this is a great show. You guys are doing a good job. You deserve
you donate a lot of information here, and we appreciate it. I have some more stuff written down here. We got about 50 minutes left, so I know if you know, you're welcome to hang out with us the whole time, and if you have to go for some reason, I guess that's something I didn't clear up before the show, you can always let us know. But
oh no, I'm here for the full time, man.
Cool thing, man.
I do have another question, Doc, if you don't mind, about not lights you grow with, but ones that you would use in your tent during lights out. The green that was it 520 to 540 nanometer spectrum.
I'm not, you know, I'm not a huge fan of that. I think there's some evidence that it can bother some strains. A lot of strains aren't going to be bothered, and you're probably going to get away with it. But I don't like going into the tent at all during the dark period. I like to respect the dark as much as possible.
Well, there is some of those instances where you may have to spray your plant, and the only time that you can do it is it lights out. And you may not get to it right at lights out to do it, like say you're at work or something, and you know you get home and it's 2 hours in the dark.
I wouldn't. I'd wait for tomorrow. I might walk my dark period until I knew I could get home. I would turn the lights off half an hour early, and I would use that half an hour, whatever, maybe it would only be 5 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I would use that time borrowed from lights on time to disturb the plants. And I used to do that like pretty much every lights on, lights off. I would keep the lights off for 5 minutes when they were supposed to come on, so I could go and check on the plants in the morning, right? In their morning rather. And then I would turn the lights off like, 10 minutes before they were supposed to actually go on, and I'd go into the plant. And if I had a lot of training to do, I'd turn the plants off, the lights off like half an hour and go do that training with a little alarm set. And when that alarm goes off, I got to bail. I got to get all my stuff out, close the door, zip up the tent, and it's dark now.
I got caught that a few times.
Yeah, so I definitely try to respect the darkness there. But yeah, again, in emergency situations and sometimes in commercial situations, they'll do this, but I tell them not to. I mean, it's a risk in that to be able to go in for some reason with green light.
Yeah.
try to keep, exposure times low regardless. But yeah.
Total UMOL count, right? No matter,
Yeah,
it
I was
doesn't
gonna
matter
say
the color.
your
If you hit that
intensity.
UMOL count,
Yeah.
it'll trigger it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's reason to believe that the spectrum of the light has an effect, but if you give it enough green light, I think it'll trigger every single plant. Yeah. So playing with a little bit of fire, and you can decide sort of how to go around that. I think it's best to, like I said, respect the darkness. And conversely, during veg, you don't have to respect the darkness at all.
Right,
So
right.
I do almost all of my training during what should be the dark period while they're in veg, so I can sort of keep the light period uninterrupted. And I turn the lights off while they're supposed to be on during flower to do training at that point. And I would do that even if I'd go into the tent, like in the middle of the run. I never open the tent up with the LED lights on.
Yeah, it's like a cloudy day, right? Some days are, cloudy, dark, there's no sun, but there's always a dark. It never gets bright at night in nature.
Right.
I know a lot of us here really enjoy the work and appreciate Dr. Bruce Bugby, and he has some information about this as well on his website. And I guess pretty much what I got at, he pretty much came right out and say that the green light is not good. You should not be running green lights pretty much at any intensity during dark time. He said this is a big misnomer.
Yeah, it's not.
I basically agree with that. The only thing though is we have a lot of sort of experience of growers actually doing that and getting away with it. There's a reason that sort of has lingered. But yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think he was saying it's going to be totally detrimental, but what they were showing was a decrease in flower development with those on versus with them off, if I remember correctly. I don't want to recall
Well,
something.
it's a matter of it triggering or not, right? So if they don't have enough UMOLs on it, if they stood far enough away from all the nugs, then it never got to that 0.1 UMOLs and nothing got triggered. But if you happen to step up to it,
not the nugs themselves, it's any leaf on the plant.
Yeah, exactly. So that's,
any leaf in the whole plant. You can have one leaf outside the tent, like growing through a hole in the tent that's sealed up. Like the whole rest of the plant could be in total darkness. If that one leaf is getting light, that'll flip the whole plant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was location specific.
No, it's the whole plant.
Any leaf. Oh my God.
Hey, I think ATG Acres was kind of embraced and emboldened that or whatever as well when he was on, and he mentioned that when he used to run down through the field and pull all the tarps at 7 p.m. and there was a big hole size of a 50-cent piece that he got he hermied the plants that were in there. Wherever it went across, he said there was a path all the way across to all those plants had hermied. So
yeah.
It was just grabbing, like you said, whatever came in its path, pretty much got the brunt of it. So I like the words that you mentioned, like always respect the darkness or always defend the darkness, and
especially during the flowering period. Absolutely.
That's kind of See, I'm like you. Sometimes I think part of the statement is a given, and I shouldn't do that. Thank you for clearing that up. Hey, can we jump on Chiba Man's question? It's eating at me here.
Let me get to Rowdy really quick. Rowdy's asked 2 times about the spider farmer lights, and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And other people have. They've asked me to test them, so I'm probably going to. I don't think it's going to happen in August. It'll probably be September. I haven't totally agreed to it yet. But I do think I'm going to do one of the Spider Farmer, either the SC1000 or SC700 in September. Okay, now we can get to Chiba Man's question.
No, I appreciate you doing that. You saw his question. It says, I've been researching 12-on light schedule for veg.
Oh, the gas lamp routine, yeah.
12 on, 5.5 off. 1 on, 5.5 off. What is your take on this? And I like I also, that's one that I had on the back burner and that I totally forgot about. So thank you, Chiba Man, for bringing that up.
Yeah, so this is an effective way to really bewilder your plants. It will keep them from going into flowering. It will also keep them from growing quickly, or sort of knowing what day it is. So yeah, you're breaking up that dark period. And basically what you're trying to do there is keep the plants from going into flowering, right? Because it's not ready for them to go into flowering yet. And gas lantern, routines, like it comes from the practice of giving plants extra light at the beginning and the end to give them to sort of lengthen that day period, or at some point during the dark period to break up the 12 hours of darkness when you're growing outdoors in a greenhouse.
Right.
And the sun is going to provide the bulk of the energy, but it's like early in the spring and there's not enough daylight yet, or day length is too short. So you got to give them some light during the dark period to keep them from going into a flowering period. If you're growing indoors, and there's no advantage to sort of dramatically reducing the amount of light that you're giving to your plants. It's going to dramatically reduce the amount of growth that you give to your plants. And disturbing the sort of circadian rhythm is going to affect their ability to grow effectively. That hour on in the middle of the dark period,
Plants count days, don't they?
messes them up. What's that?
Plants count days, like they, you know what I mean? Those night cycles are like math for them in a sense.
Yeah, I guess you could sort of think of it like that, in that there are certain processes, especially in plants that, like the autoflowers, that have basically an internal clock triggering their development.
The light schedule or the light interruption, or
not necessarily a light schedule clock. You probably mess it up and move it up to some extent, but it's also like a developmental timing clock.
So it sounds like this.
Autos, that's right. I never thought of it that way.
It sounds like what you're saying pretty much is this gas lantern routine is pretty much for someone who would be trying to be in early spring in a greenhouse, and they want to veg during that time without their plant flipping the flower because of the natural light schedule of the sun. So now they have to come in and do this with
lights. So you're not going to invest in like a ton of good lighting or whatever, or run it too long. You're just at this point just trying to keep them from going into flower, right? So that's right.
This would almost be a non-issue for someone who strictly is growing indoors.
Right. There's no benefit to it. There's
no benefit indoors. Gotcha.
We had a good grower, somebody that like I knew for years and trusted them to grow, that did this and did a really like full faith effort to do this, and like eventually gave up on it because he's like, these plants are so sad. There's like, I just get sad every time I go in there. Like, so after like 2 months of trying to veg plants out with the gas lantern routine, he gave up, threw in the towel, and put them back on a normal lighting schedule, and they improved dramatically like within a week. So yeah,
survive that.
If you're sort of into like plant torture or whatever, you like
plant S&M.
Yeah.
Do a little bonsai, throw some of that in there, and No, it's
I don't think anybody's making money off of promoting this. I think they just do it because you get attention, and so people repost this crap. I'm sure it's going to keep coming up, and people are going to keep doing this through the years, not because anybody anywhere is ever having any success doing it like this, but people will say they do and post it online because they think it's fun to get new growers to try things that are just like disastrous for their
That's
crops.
just mean.
That's not for the
I don't
new
understand
grower.
that aspect at all.
It drives me nuts, man.
It's not.
You see accounts like promoting it like that. I'm like, you haven't done this, and if you have, then you're just a terrible grower. You don't even you shouldn't be out here giving people advice about these things. So, anyways, those are my.
I agree.
That's what I actually think.
But
thoughts of Dr.
It is
Coco.
pretty cool to see what the plant can live through. Like, it's interesting to do.
Resiliency. Something to
but
behold.
you know,
just not in my tent.
You want your plants to be successful. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
right?
we don't want them to just survive. We want to
I always assume the grower's goal is to have a good, successful harvest with, excellent quality and as much quantity as they can sort of muster with the equipment and, what they're working with.
Yeah.
and to the extent that you have different goals, and that's legitimate. Like I know some people have different goals. Some people want to grow a plant that they can take fun pictures of and post on Instagram. You know, some people have a pet for that reason too, right? Like that's up to you. Like that's not why I would have a pet, and that's not why I would grow my plants. But like if that's what you're into, you may decide to make different kinds of decisions
All
in
about
terms
the
of
light.
some of the plant training or whatever you're growing in. You know, you're going to do like, you know, roots over rock bonsai or something. If you're doing that, it's not because like you hope to harvest as much as possible from this crop, right? You have some other kinds of goals, and they're legitimate too, but that's just not what I assume, you know, I'm talking to people about.
Masses are out there to grow a good quality medicine and product.
Yeah, to get the
I
most
agree.
bang for your buck and for what you're paying for your light and everything else. There's certain things you'd like to follow, and that's the only thing that I thought that it would be useful for, as you were mentioning. And so that's good to get that out there. Here's a question I get a lot, Doc, and I've asked you this before, and I like just hearing it from you. And I'm surprised people ask me when it comes to lights, why does the light say that it will veg a 5x5 area, but it will only flower a 4x4 area? That means I have to drastically up they think that means turning up full blast and overlight or whatever. So can you explain to people why you do a much better job of why these manufacturers will tell you this?
Yeah. So first of all, we have to be able to think about light as it's a quantity. So one of my favorite analogies now is like water in a swimming pool. Okay. It's like the light is the water and the swimming pool is your grow tent, right? So when they're in veg, you don't need as much density of light. So this would be like shallower water in the swimming pool, right? So if you have the same amount of water and you only need it to be like 1 foot deep, you could have a bigger swimming pool. If you need it to be 2 feet deep and the amount of water stays the same, you got to make the swimming pool smaller. Does that make sense?
I like
Yes.
Yes.
So that's basically what's going on there. Now, there's a few caveats to this. Like, for starters, they're quoting spaces like that, assuming that you have separate veg and flower spaces. Okay, so that you have a veg room and you're going to plot out how many lights do I need to put in my veg room, and then you're going to have a flower room and you're going to plot out how many lights do I need to put in my flower room, right? They're not expecting you to like shrink your tent between veg and flower.
Your plants get bigger so you can fit less of them under there.
Right. So if you had a veg room and several flower rooms and they were all the same size, you would probably have, you know, 30 to 50 to even more % more lights in the flower rooms than you would in the veg room. But you would set a PPFD target, right? So like if somebody's got a big space like that and they come to me and they want to talk through sort of how many lights they have, we'll talk about sort of the size of their rooms and the PPFD target that they would want in that space. And usually, you know, for a commercial operation that's interested in like a lot of production, we'll have a PPFD target in the veg space of an average PPFD target of like 800 to 900, and an average PPFD target in the flower rooms of like 1100 to 1200. And, you know, then figure out sort of how many lights do we need in order to hit those different densities, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Finally, the final thing I want to say here is that nothing happens to the plants between veg and flower that allows them to start using more light. They can always use that full flowering dose of light. You can give that to them from the time that they reach like 4 nodes as seedlings. Before that, you'd want to like ramp them up to it. But by the time they've got like 4 nodes, if you're growing well and you're taking care of these plants well, they can handle that full dose of light from then on. It's just that they don't need to, right? During veg, you have longer day lengths and you have longer time. You can veg them for as long as you want to get as much growth as you sort of want out of the plant. But during the flowering period, we're limited in both day length and number of days. And so it becomes much more important to sort of hit the max and give as much light as you can every single day. The other side of this is the canopy's full at that point, right? So all of that light is hitting the plants themselves. When your canopy is not full and everything else is the same, you're going to have a higher average PPFD. That's certainly true in any grow tent. So if you're thinking about like your grow tent, when you first put your plants in there, and you can see a lot of the floor, then the average PPFD is going to be a lot higher than it is when plants fill in that canopy. So you kind of keep that in mind as well in sort of the relationship between veg and flower when you're doing it in a tent.
That's a great answer. I love the analogy. And like I said, that's a good, thorough answer to that question, because it does throw a lot of people off, you know?
Yeah.
That would be in relation to a DLI, right? For veg, like if you had like, I don't know, you're going 24, 20 on, 4 off, and you're blasting it from the start. Not only are you wasting on the empty tent space, but that plant potentially is not gonna be happy after a certain amount of hours, right?
No.
So as long as you don't go
DLI
over
is
the
not a
DLI.
limit like that. A lot of growers think that there's some sort of 24-hour limit to the amount of DLI that plants can process, but that's not the correct way to think about DLI. There is.
I can give it 1,000 U-moles for that whole 20 hours, and there'd be no problem.
As long as you're keeping up with all the rest of the conditions the plant requires. Yeah, there's no 24-hour sort of cycle out.
That's all I needed to know.
Photosynthesis happens on a second-by-second basis, as long as all the other parameters are in place.
I always thought there was a limit there. Remember Dr. Bugby talked about that 75, moles per day?
Yes,
Right?
I think
maximum
if you
or 90 even he was talking about there if you did it, if you went overkill, but there was still that limit he talked about. So what does that mean?
I'll have
Because
to,
if there isn't
I'll have
really
to review exactly what Bugby's talking about there. There's a way to calculate the maximum would be the maximum PPFD times sort of the number of hours.
Exactly. I've done my math and it's 75 or something, or 80 U-mole or 80 moles per day there when I max it out there for 20 hours.
Right.
And I think I did that at 800 U-moles even. It wasn't 1,000.
At what level of carbon dioxide?
Just regular atmospheric.
So you don't know necessarily.
400. Well, I have a meter. That's 400 minimum, but it floats around 500-600.
Okay.
ppms.
Okay, that becomes an important sort of consideration in this. Most home growers have higher carbon dioxide than you would in sort of a truly ambient sense, because they're in our living spaces. I mean, you got a oxygen breathing large organisms sharing the space.
I'm not that large, but yeah.
No, that's
my cats
true.
are providing, you know what I mean?
You're
and my neighbors.
Fire breathing organism there, so you got to kind of take that into consideration in terms of what your CO2 levels are and what kind of PPFD you might be able to achieve.
Might even be able to push it a bit then.
Yeah, but no, I'd be interested if you have a specific link to point me to where I could see what Bugby, where you think Bugby's saying something different. I'd certainly be interested to review.
Well, he wasn't saying that. He was just talking about that DLI for the day, right? And how there was a certain maximum for cannabis, and I think he stated 70, but it might be 90 moles per day.
But I thought
that's in his latest ones, or one of his latest videos on cultivation.
Yeah, no, maybe you could send the link later.
Maybe I'll try and find it. Yeah.
I'd be interested to sort of understand, because there's several factors that will affect that. One of them is the concentration of carbon dioxide. The other is the flowering period of the plant, and if there's a limit on the number of hours. So, the carbon dioxide percentage basically sets the maximum density of light that you're able to deliver. And then the flowering period determines the duration of that density light. So the density we measure on a per second basis, and then you just multiply that by sort of how many seconds there were. And that gives you, how many moles of light or micromoles.
And I think that's how Dr. Bugby arrived at the number that he got.
Yeah, it turns into moles there for the whole day. It's a big number.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not its own limit in that sense. It's being limited by two separate things. And
it's just a calculation.
The intersection of them. Does that make sense?
No, because it's true, because the sun only has a certain amount of moles per day. right? But we don't. We could do 24 if we want, because we're indoor. We have our own LED source, right? So I think he was referring more to what cannabis can take. I don't know.
Right, but there's nothing that occurs. There's no 24-hour cycle limiter. There's the photosynthesis is going to be limited by processes that occur simultaneously. So the ability of it to access carbon dioxide, nutrients, water, and light, all in that sort of second. There's nothing that sort of ticks out and resets every 24 hours in that sense.
That's right, because you could give it the CO2, like what was it, 1200 ppms, where you could run 1500 UMols and do that for 20 hours a day.
Right, exactly, and that would increase the DLI maximum that you could get.
Yeah, a lot of moles per day.
But I think it's important that, like you said, Dr. Coco, that there's not really, the DLI should never be interpreted as a prescribed amount of light that the plant can take. And if you get past that, you're done. Now it's going to go to sleep and it's going to droop and all this other stuff. That's really not how they're not really the same. The circadian rhythm and stuff is a little bit complicated for me, but I think I understand some of the gist there, that there's a difference, you know.
And the droop, what about the droop? Because I know that I always see my plants droop before the night comes, and I've always assumed that was just like you said, it's preparing for the night, right? And so it'll always droop no matter what your cycle is, because it knows.
It will droop if they know when it's going to be, when the darkness is coming.
It's been in it for a bit there, and it knows that this is coming, like that circadian cycle. If you just flip, then obviously it can't tell. But
this is like you waking up 10 seconds before your alarm clock goes off. Yeah. Right.
And I do
get into that rhythm where your body just knows. Plants do have a circadian rhythm like that. So they know when darkness is coming, and they prepare for it by storing energy and also drooping their leaves. Often they're moving carbohydrates downward in the plant. And
so it's
getting ready to sort of for that dark cycle, the dark period for them. They'll also start ramping up again right before the lights turn on. They'll start perking up their leaves in anticipation of the coming light. If they know when
they headbang. It's crazy. If you go fast at the right speed on time lapse there, they literally headbang every day.
Or they look like little birds that are trying to fly. If you
exactly, they're flapping their wings or
they look
so does all that hold true for plants that grow like in the way northern part of the hemisphere where they don't get much darkness?
Well, we're not
or zero at all
growing them like that, right? No, cannabis plants that are naturally
like
evolved to grow in the far north evolved autoperiodism, right? They evolved to sort of move away from the photo limits on that, so that they could finish flowering within the amount of time that they had.
It's a time trigger,
not long day length, but short season, right? So that's what defines sort of extreme northern and extreme southern latitude.
Right.
The sun never sets up there. It's crazy, if you're high enough, but I can't imagine it getting very.
But it only lasts for that only lasts for a few days. If you're like out the Arctic Circle, or the further north you go, the longer those all day long, and then you get short day lengths, and then by September you're in the darkness most of the year or most of the day. So
it's minus 80 and there's no sun ever. It's like, oh man, it's brutal up there.
So plants evolved differently for that situation, and realize that there's sort of evolution, and then there's the individual plant kind of training. This is a different kind of plant training in terms of the condition that it's growing in, and it gets used to things. If you water your plant consistently on a schedule, the plant will be prepared for that too, and it'll know when it's about to get watered. The plant will know when the lights are about to come on and go off. The plant will be ready for those things, and to the extent that they change, it can be disruptive for the plant, and always some kind of stressor for the plant.
And I love it when you come on, Doc, because I always learn some.
It's always good
clarifications. You know what
I
I
mean?
Go ahead, Smart. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Puffy. If you got a question, lay it on.
Yeah, before I forget, I want to know how much, or in your opinion, how much your UV light affects your terpene production in your buds.
I mean,
because it's a stressor, right? And that's what
we have theories. at this point, I think we have theories and we have
Great question.
Papers for and
evidence
against
that's
it.
really inconclusive, whether it's beneficial at all or harmful, or if it's strain dependent, or if it's depends on the particular mode or method of application, densities, durations, timing, other things like that. I don't think that there's anything to give people good advice for. So I don't recommend UV at this stage. I don't think that we have enough knowledge about UV to be able to at least sort of UV and UVB towards these purposes, towards like spiking cultivation. I think we know how to use UV for like sterilization purposes and stuff like that. If you're doing that in your grow, that's different. But yeah, I mean,
Can we talk about that a bit? Like 222 nanometer, I hear you could potentially use while being in the room with the plants, and it sterilizes them. Did you hear about that?
22 nanometer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be exposed to light that short.
Yeah, during
That you can. Apparently, this is just that narrow gap there, that there's a certain gap where it's actually safe. It doesn't cross the eye water barrier, it doesn't cross your skin barrier, but it does kill the microbes and the bacteria and all that stuff.
we
That was my problem with it. I had a 253 nanometer, and you can't be in the room. It'll blind you. It'll burn your skin, everything.
Yeah.
No, they
It's
make
what I
these
saw
little
the
things
papers
that
on.
have a UV light inside them, and it shines the UV light in an aluminum plate, and it has a fan that pulls the air through this. And you can put these things in your grow tent, run them all the time. You never sort of see the light, but they won't work if you're cycling the air through like in an exhausted room. This is for like a sealed room where, you know, you can actually treat that air. If you're exhausting, if you're actively exhausting air, I think it's going to be tough to use UV at that moment for sterilization.
What if you use it on the input duct? Because I've seen one where they're in the ductwork.
It's just not enough exposure time.
Not because they
It's
offer
not
me
strong
that
enough quickly through there.
Yeah.
So that's one of the, or you just need to have a hell of a lot.
So are you saying that
It's
the
got to be
ones
real
that they put
strong.
in your
Exactly.
in your central air systems are a gimmick because they use them in there?
Yeah, they try to
You
sell
don't have
be strong
enough UV in there, right? You can have some impact on it, but whether you're going to kill all pathogens depends on the exposure time and the dose.
Yeah.
And if you've got a big air handler unit and it's pulling air in really quickly and just passing over a relatively low dose UV bulb, it's not going to be totally sterilizing that air. If you're in a closed loop system and doing this repeatedly, like back to a sealed room that's not doing outdoor air ventilation, then you could eventually, sterilize that. But that's through sort of a multiple pass technique, not, 100% coverage on each pass.
That's a good point. Yeah, because those are expensive systems. They tried to sell me that when I had my when we did our furnace, and I was like, no.
I've got one in my home. But I've never replaced the bulb in it, and that's what I was wondering if it was a gimmick. And if it is, then I definitely won't replace that bulb.
I was looking at 222 because it's, you know what I mean? Then it's always on.
No, that would be interesting. I mean, be aware that UV is generally dangerous. I mean, this is why we wear sunscreen when we go outside and all this stuff. So play safe with UV, especially as the numbers get lower.
It doesn't even exist in nature there. It's bad. It's very powerful.
It gets filtered out in the atmosphere. So
so the shorter the wavelength, the more potential for damage. 400 is the cusp of ultraviolet. And, if we're talking in the 200s, that's really short wavelength light.
That's I remember seeing there was a YouTube video around for that, and it was something that we all mentioned and talked about, and we were thinking when we get Doc on, we'll ask him about this. And I know it's new technology that came around with COVID and whatever, but it was kind of like something that I was interested in too, because I know that some of that can be very damaging. And again, for new listeners, they might, try to dip their toes into that. And we want to make sure they understand what exactly.
Handheld ones of 253 where they're just waving it over the plants.
Man, a little wand.
Your tent's made of Mylar. It's going to reflect that and burn.
Yeah, you got to be very careful, very, very careful. And it's, you have to have it's good to mention the benefits as well as something that might be, dangerous, especially for us as much as maybe our plants. That's all great. We have a couple questions.
One
here
thing
in
about
chat.
this, guys, I have growers pretty much every week reach out to me and be like, I'm considering these 2 lights, and like one of them I think is a pretty good light, and the other one I'm like, meh. And they're like leaning towards the meh one because it has UV diodes in it and the other one doesn't. And I'm like, no, don't, please, for
Not
the
a
love of
deciding
everything
factor.
holy and in green, don't make your sort of grow light decisions based on that.
Right
You
advice.
don't want a few UV diodes in your full spectrum grow light. That's totally a gimmick. There's nothing really backing that up.
The
If we were
fluorescent
going
ones,
to
if
use UV
anything, right?
effectively, it would be short duration during specific times. You know, not probably a low dose like all the time that your light is on. That's not going to be a benefit there. Now, it's probably not going to hurt too much. You're not really adding that much UV with those silly little, like they put like 1 or 4 or something diodes on your light.
You're annoying it like
but
a bug.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. It's definitely
It's
not
really
worth
doing
buying a light for that, for having the UV. And frankly, you know, unless they're really devoting a lot of power to it, to the IR diodes either. You know, I've only tested one light that really devoted enough power to the IR diodes to make them sort of be a factor in how I would expect that light to perform in a grow. That was the SQ300 from Photon Tech, like the first one that got me into the IR testing. But other than that, there's a whole ton of lights out there that put like a few 730 nanometer diodes and they run like almost no power to them. Don't pay attention to that. I mean, that's neither a here nor there in terms of which light to buy.
Yeah, the ESQ was the first one to really make use of the Emerson effect there, right? By adding a good percentage of reds.
Yeah. So they really, I think 12% of the fixture power goes to 730 nanometer diodes.
That was the light that had you switch to EPAR testing
Exactly.
because of what it carried. Yeah.
Exactly. So they actually get a pretty strong register in the 730 nanometer wavelengths. Whereas, you know, every light produces, you know, the full spectrum diodes, which, well, full spectrum diode is really just a 450 nanometer diode with phosphor on the inside of it that refracts that 450 nanometer light to a lot of different spectrum, some of which is far red. So generally about 3% of full spectrum diode light is far red light. And I've measured that pretty consistently across different kinds of full spectrum diodes.
Oh, LED chips do that too? Like fluorescence? Where they use a UV base and they coat the phosphorus there to make it visible?
Yeah, so fluorescent tube, exactly. You excite electrons, you bombard them into vaporized mercury. The resulting, so that collision sends the electrons into a higher orbit. And when they drop back down to their original orbit, they release light. And fluorescent tubes release UV light that then hits the phosphor on the inside of the tube and refracts to visible light. And yeah, some portion of that can refract into the far red light as well.
If you could somehow scrape the inside of your white fluorescence, you'd have a UV bulb already. Since you can't get to it, you know, it's on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. The UV, I mean, and if you want to get UV, you should get it from a fluorescent tube. Fluorescents are by far the most efficient way to get UV light. LED diodes to create fluorescent light are not efficient. We don't, and they might become more so. That's one of the areas where you know, LED diode technology may improve in efficiency is in areas like UV and far red. But UV particularly is not very efficient from diodes. So if you're really interested in playing with UV, you should be getting it from a fluorescent tube, not from a diode.
Yeah.
Don't make your LED light decision based on a couple far red diodes or a couple UV diodes.
It's probably a lower nanometer too, right? Because I think they sell them like in the 380s or something, but you want a 310 or, you know what I mean? Something like that.
For fluorescents?
Yeah. Fluorescents are 310, but the LEDs, are they 310 too, or are they?
You can, well, they're made, light that comes out of these fixtures in different ways, right? So an LED diode uses a semiconductor to create light. And a semiconductor is just two different sort of non-conductive materials that are put together, a p-type and an n-type. And when electrons are forced from one to the other, they have to drop their orbit, and dropping the orbit releases a photon. And so you control what kind of photons based on what kind of, semiconductor materials that you use.
Okay.
And basically one type of semiconductor material has impurities embedded into it that allow, a little bit of conduction. And the other type has basically like holes like Swiss cheese in it. And it's by choosing different types of semiconductor materials. So when you get like a 660 nanometer diode, that is 660 nanometer light that's generated by semiconductor materials that send electrons down the exact amount it requires to generate 660 nanometer light.
Yeah.
And so almost all of the light from those diodes are pretty narrow band. They're all almost exactly the same band of light. And the most efficient diode that we have are the 450 to 460 nanometer diodes, a blue light. And so that's what they use for the full spectrum diodes, like sort of the base is going to be a really efficient, like 450 nanometer diode. And you use phosphor to refract that out into full spectrum. But for all the other diodes, they're using different semiconductor materials to create the right light from the semiconductor itself. So your, 485 nanometer diodes there's no phosphor involved usually. There's just the right semiconductor materials that create that right drop. But again, by sort of advancing research in semiconductor materials, we may be able to make more efficient 485 or 450 nanometer diodes, 385 or 350 nanometer diodes or 320 nanometer diodes. That's one area. We don't think that we're going to make very much more efficient, like 450 nanometer diodes or even 660 nanometer diodes. Those are already really efficient. Anyway, I'll shut up. I can't even remember what I was asked. But
no, man, this is awesome.
Yeah,
man. That's awesome.
this is.
What about lasers? Where do they sit in all this?
Oh my.
Lasers is a different way of sort of organizing light. So that you organize the light to travel together, right, on the same pattern. That's something that we're not, that's a totally different sort of step than what we're doing with LEDs and the basic creation of that light. We don't kind of focus light much. I don't think we should with LEDs. There are some certainly grow lights out there that use lenses, but I don't think that we should.
A lot of times
it's so focused that you can't get a like white, like it can get red, blue, and green, but you can't get white. I guess it'd be a combination.
Well, white is a combination. White isn't really a color. White is all of the colors at the same time is one way you could think of it.
So you could light a plant with lasers if you had red, blue, green ones.
Yeah.
Well, it's just way too much density. So a laser is designed to focus all of your photons into a very narrow beam.
I'm thinking hitting just the leaf, nothing else.
You could burn a hole right through it, man.
Yeah, it would be a very low intensity laser then.
Focused, and it had to be far away to not burn it.
So,
well, we're down to the last.
Very far
I'm
away.
thinking Mars growing there. I have to grow from a distance there. We're lighting it from Earth. You know what I mean?
We're
With
down to
lasers,
our
you
last 8
potentially do
minutes
that,
here.
yeah.
And I'd like to make sure that we give everybody their fair share time to do
sorry.
their shout outs and things like that. I hate to cut you off there,
oh,
Doc. I
we're
love
done with our 2 hours. Jesus.
Yeah, man, it goes quick. Well, we still got 8 minutes.
This was the fastest 2-hour podcast I think I've done in like years, man.
Wow, that's very endearing, man, that we're able to keep you engaged.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
No, it really does. Like it seems like I'm like, all right, so let's get started.
I got my trim done too.
Like shit, this was just the preamble, right? We're just getting warmed up.
We could run all day. I'm
whenever
sure,
we were doing 4 hours, when we dropped to 2, it was like, where'd the time go?
Yeah.
One thing Jack Greenstock taught me was to always go out on a high note, man, and keep them wanting to come back for more. So I think the 2 hours really gives us a lot of that. And this gives us a chance to hold Dr. Coco up for another episode in the future here to talk
always,
more.
Guys. I'm happy to come back anytime. So just, put out the word and I'll come running.
Awesome.
We definitely need to get you on here when you have some plants going.
I know, right? So I got to figure this. That's what we started talking about today. I got to figure this out. I still got some time though. I got probably a month to figure out where I'm going to put the tent. Oh God, I don't want to put it back in my office.
I was going to mention that and talking about all this light spectrum, and they were saying about get to know Dr. Coco better. You're actually colorblind, right?
Yeah, I'm colorblind.
I don't think a lot of people know that about you. So
I didn't know that.
It comes up sometimes. It's interesting being colorblind, but yeah, I don't see like red on black very well. And green is actually, I've been told that green is my worst color. So which is funny seeing as like I grow plants and but
it'd be hard to diagnose.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You would have to, That's
well, red things disappear on a green background for me, or green and red, if they're dark enough. I sort of pick up the contrast in tone or shade, but not as much.
So you won't get the fade look there, basically.
It makes it hard diagnosing some things, to be honest with you. Not generally. Yellow is one of my stronger colors, and yellow is sort of one of the colors that we have to sort of be aware of. It's not often that like you get like red spots on your leaves, right? Like, but you can.
No, exactly.
Spots.
But we wanted to make sure that everybody knew to go over and sign up. My wife posted the Coco for Cannabis link, the Plant Training Grow Challenge. You can sign up now. The form will be open in the next few weeks, if I'm thinking correctly here. Yeah, about the 15th or so. Flip date October 1st. And it's going to be a lot of fun. The Plant Training Grow Challenge is my personal favorite because we're going into the cool season, and I just like to train my plants. I like the manifold and mainline. Yeah, man, it just makes it nice. And when you're harvesting, it's cool out, and
that's
and
why.
Especially here in the Pittsburgh area, this is a perfect time to get going. So.
For home growers, I think in general, unless you're really running a lot of air conditioning during your whole grow and during your dry and during your cure, keeping your buds at the right temperature, the December harvest is usually the one that you're able to nail and, sort of keep the temperatures and late flower down low enough. Keep the dry temperature low enough, keep, all of that. I think it makes a big difference because I don't invest a lot usually in air conditioning for just sort of like crop preservation purposes for the April harvest. April harvest is the second best. That's the New Year's Grow Challenge, right? Yes. Then the July harvest, man, for the Spring Autoflower Challenge is just like such a brutal harvest because it's so hot.
Yeah.
So I definitely think the Plant Training Grow Challenge has the potential every year to produce the best quality crop.
Yeah, and you're also
Christmas buds.
You're making the best use of your light if you're training well, and you're definitely going to get like I feel like that's going to be your most productive if you train well. You're going to use your light best, and then you're going to, like you said, finish out in a nice perfect temperature, and so it makes it like I said, one of my favorites. So I hope everybody shows up and signs up and keep a journal, and that's awesome. I always say the journals are self-serving. It's a great way for you to go back and look at what your plant did. It's almost like your own little growth strain review or whatever, and other people can stumble upon it just by looking for keywords at Coco for Cannabis, and it's been very helpful to many folks. They've referenced that to me, so please check it out. And then we also mentioned the Grower Love giveaway. Keep looking for that, for new ones all the time. Dr. Coco has light premieres, and there's also the deals and discounts page. So if you'd like to support all of his work and all the good grow me, all the good stuff he does, giving things away, spreading knowledge for free, and just a way that you carry yourself, Doc, with integrity and with you don't have a lot of sponsors, like nothing, no one runs your page. It's nice. I love the purity of it, and it's very refreshing, man.
Yeah, we work with people that we choose to work with. We don't sell advertising to like anybody. Like we have some sponsors that give prizes away and stuff like that.
Right.
We choose those people because
Yeah.
I believe they make good products and we set the terms for those collaborations. So absolutely.
And that's a big difference between a lot of other sites. And I like to point that out. And it's something that's it's important to me. So I like the organic way that Coco for Cannabis is, and it's been my home for almost since it started. And we always, every day we have a show, we try to shout it out and spread that around. Like I said, that's where it all began. Shout out to JJ and Chelia for all the work they do and Grow Sponsor. And again, check out all Doc's codes over there. They have so many now. I don't even want to start naming them. So there's like a whole page you can scroll through, and then there's the Grower Love giveaway and all that stuff right there at your fingertips as well.
Yep. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. Thanks for all the support from your show, and I hope that you feel it right back from us. This is one of the ways that we grow together, right? That's it.
Yeah, it's an awesome community.
And refer back to earlier in the show about the Last Prisoner Project, and Doc's going to be showing up there, and we'll have giveaways, and that's September 18th. Check Doc out tonight. Hopefully you'll be making the Cheap Home Grow show, Growing with My Fellow Growers.
I will be. Yeah, I don't know what happened last week. I was there on time, and it didn't seem like they must have started like pretty late or something. I don't know.
They did start late.
Yeah, there was a little bit late, and I think he was already into a project or something. You were postponing it.
Yeah, I had moved on, and I got I single task on things. I just get totally absorbed in them. And then I looked at my clock. It was like 6 o'clock already, which is when the show ends for me. And I'm like, they never sent me a message that let me know the show is starting. What the hell?
Well, I think we can all relate to that. It's been a busy week here. And I got to say, my time spending here with you guys today has been very decompressing. My heart's into growing and into grower love and spreading good knowledge and hanging with you great people. And you're like family to me, for real. So I appreciate all the chat. The chat is the heart, soul, and the heartbeat of these shows. And they come out, they bring good questions. And, I always try to send love there. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap this up so everybody can get on about their Sundays. We want to definitely thank Dr. Coco again for his time and for all the knowledge you drop. And we're going to have this put out on Anchor. And I'm excited to be able to do that. And it's very awesome. Right. So we'll go around here and give our final shout outs. Is that all right?
Yeah.
And we'll stop and do Dr. Coco last, since he's our guest. So we will do ladies first, as always.
Thank you so much, Dr. MJ Coco, for hanging out with us. This is awesome. It's always fun and a great learning experience every time you come on. And we definitely appreciate it. I second that notion. Smart just went over, and grower love to the chat, to PUFFYD and WEEDNERD for always hanging out with us. I'm Crispy Wannabe. You can find me here every Sunday and Wednesday. Be sure to check back and hang out with us some more. And you want to take it away, WEEDNERD?
Sure. Yeah. Cheers. And thanks to Doc. We really appreciate the knowledge. You're dropping the knowledge bombs. So you're definitely welcome to come back there. We got more questions for you. We just probably didn't think of them. Yeah, too many. Eh? But cheers to everybody. Cheers to chat for showing up. And you can find me on YouTube as WEEDNERD DWC. You can find me on IG as the same name, and on Coco for Cannabis as Crack Babies. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Take it over, Puffy.
Yeah, and I've been PUFFYD. As always, you can find me in chat over at Coco for Cannabis. I'm in and out of there all the time throughout the day. So don't be afraid to pop in there and ask some questions. I'll be happy to help you out when I can. Other than that, you can find me on Instagram at PUFFYD1974. Posting pictures and stuff of my current grows. And also you can check out my journals over at Coco for Cannabis. I still have my spring autoflower challenge going there, trying to finish those out. So the journals are still open and still being updated. So check them out, give them a read, and place any comments if you want. Other than that, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thanks, Doc, for coming by. A lot of fun. Learned a lot. I always learn a lot whenever you're around. So really appreciate the knowledge that you're willing to give out freely, that most people would pay a lot of money for. So we really appreciate that. And like everybody said, you're welcome back anytime, especially if you got some plans going. We would definitely like to see that.
Cheers to that.
Make it a date.
Before I turn it over to Dr. MJ, and I don't want to make a solemn thing, but I would like to mention that we recently had a member of Coco for Cannabis who passed away. We mentioned it. His name was Love to Grow, and he was a great grow me, and we're trying not to be sad about it. We're celebrating the fact that we had the solemn pride to be able to grow with him when he was here, and he was very active. He was looking forward to being much more active in the next Plant Training Grow Challenge, and I think it's important to remember him and send a shout out. But again, I don't want to end and turn it over to you, Doc, on a sad note. But I think it's important to celebrate his the time we got to spend with Love to Grow.
It is. Let's roll one up for him today, guys. And you can think about Love to Grow, great member of our community. So thanks for bringing that up, Smart. I think it's a nice sort of memory. It was a lot of fun to come on your show, guys. It's been a minute since I've been on the Sundazed and Confused show. I see you guys are up to, episode number 33, and I'm certainly rooting for there to be several hundreds more. I think that you guys are onto something really cool, building a good audience and good content. And I'd always be happy to come back on and talk. We didn't, as is often the case, and I was serious. I was like, we didn't get to some of the things that I was expecting to talk about today. So we're going to have to do another show, I guess. Sure. But talk about some of the sort of my background and work I've done with other kinds of farmers and stuff. I saw just recently somebody asked in the chat if I was a doctor. I do have a PhD, and I could talk to you a little bit about sort of the work that I've done there. So we should come back on and do another one of these things.
Yes, let's do it really soon, Doc. If you have a couple hours.
A more personalized Doc, get to know Doc episode.
Yeah, so more I get to.
But I always enjoy these shows talking about growing questions. We got into a lot of really interesting stuff that I realize I don't, talk too much. And I kind of think that, I've covered all of the stuff that I know on some show or another. So it's fun for me to kind of like, oh yeah, I haven't talked about this before. This is a cool thing to share.
Awesome, man.
We came across a few things like that in today's show, and you guys are a great, panel, a great audience. Thanks to everybody from the Coco for Cannabis community and, the Sundazed and Confused community. Be sure to thumbs up the episode, subscribe to the Smart Poker YouTube channel. And I grow or love, everyone.
Grow or love.